At an intersection near the factory area, there had long been this discarded pot in a rubbish bag. It was a common gold pot with a handle on each side. How bad must the contents be if someone threw the whole pot out? I often thought. Or maybe the factory workers used it as an ashtray. I don't know. One rainy night, I was a little drunk and on my way home from the bar when I caught sight of that pot again. Normally, I'd walk right past it, but the liquor made me feel bolder than usual. I wanted to see what was in it. This pot created a strange atmosphere, reflecting the nearby street light in the dark of night as rain fell on it. I opened the bag, grabbed the lid, and then slowly moved it. I couldn't believe my eyes. From the darkness of the pot, a pale arm, like a withered branch, reached out and grabbed the edge of the pot so forcefully that it made a sound. I left it and ran home as fast as I could. I didn't realize I could even run that fast. That pot is still there, even now, but I no longer take that road home at night. Hey guys, I'm your host Tara A. Devlin, and welcome to this week's episode of Kowabana, true Japanese scary stories from around the internet. If you're looking for more to listen to once you're done with this episode, I've been recording various audiobooks that you can now find on our Patreon, Fourth Wall store, and various audiobook outlets, including Spotify. I'm adding more all the time, so if you need another hit of Japanese horror, head over to patreon.com/TaraADevlin, the Kowabana Fourth Wall shop, or your favourite online store to pick some up right now. This week, we're finishing up our adventures with Grandpa Kiichi before diving into a few other stories to see the show out. First up, Old Man Tochiro finds himself caught up in yet another strange adventure, this time apparently involving a mermaid. The Japanese kind, of course. But is it real, or is there something else sinister at work here? Find out in The Mermaid Craftsman. Hey, Kiichi! A voice called out from the shop as soon as Kiichi got back from fishing. He knew that voice. Old Man Tochiro? It was his father's weird friend. Come here, I've got something strange to show you, he said with a laugh. Then he took something out of a box and showed it to him. A mermaid? Kiichi said, raising his voice in surprise. It was around the size of a daikon radish, and its head looked human, while the rest of it looked like a mummified fish. Pretty cool, huh? I got it as thanks for helping a foreigner in a port city. He wondered why on earth Tochiro would accept something like that as a gift of thanks. But it was no doubt something he wanted. And as Tochiro was about to regale him with tales of his adventures, Kiichi's old man looked up from his ledger to interrupt him. So, what do you want me to do with this fake? He said. He had no interest in the story or the mermaid. It's fake? Kiichi looked at his father, his eyes wide open. Of course it is. It's a monkey and a carp joined together. Once they're dried, you can't even see where they've been put together. Foreigners often sell this sort of thing. Kiichi looked over at Tochiro, as though to confirm what his father was saying, and Tochiro shrugged. Sadly, this is indeed fake, but I think the elaborate work that goes into creating them is art, he said. Kiichi had no interest in art, so he was only left disappointed. At first, Tochiro took it home, but it creeped his family out, and there was nowhere to put it, and so he ended up bringing it there instead. Come on, keep it here for me. I really like it, so I don't want to sell it. Kiichi's old man considered it as Tochiro pleaded, holding it as he carefully looked it over. Hey, I'm not gonna sell it, you know, he said nervously. Then Kiichi's old man gave him a strange condition. Look into this Mermaid Craftsman for me. You might find something you like as well, but I'm also kinda interested to find out more. If you do hear anything interesting, let me know. That's my condition. Tochiro crossed his arms and seriously considered the strange proposal. Well, I have been pretty free recently, and if I might find something I like... Kiichi's old man ignored him and started putting the mermaid away. Alright, but if nothing comes of this, then I'm taking something from the storehouse in return, Tochiro said, and then he left before Kiichi's old man could reply. Although he didn't actually say, I don't like it, Kiichi knew at times like this, his father knew something, and so Kiichi was worried about Tochiro. After a few days of walking around the harbour, Tochiro managed to track down the Mermaid Craftsman. Even though it was raining, he went straight to the address he discovered without an umbrella. The owner wasn't home, but the door was unlocked, and although he knew he shouldn't, he went inside and started poking around. He knew it would be a problem if someone found him there, but he would act like he'd been there numerous times, if so. Inside, he found various crafting tools, dried monkeys, and a mountain of other creepy things, but he wasn't able to find anything that would interest him, like Kiichi's old man suggested. Which wasn't surprising, as he didn't know what he was supposed to be looking for to begin with. When he stopped to catch his breath, suddenly Tochiro heard a deep male voice coming from behind him. Who are you? He turned around and a man was holding a knife towards his throat. I've been watching you for a while, but you don't seem to be a thief. Are you from the government? The man seemed rather agitated. Hey, do I look like someone from the government? And who on earth would complain about a fake mermaid to the government in the first place? Tochiro laughed as though he didn't even see the knife, and the man looked him up and down as though he didn't trust him. Looks like you're unarmed, he said, and then he put down the knife. Well then, what on earth do you want? Why did you break in here? Break in? I don't know anything about that. I came here to buy a mermaid that could cure any illness, Tochiro said, saying the first thing that came to his head. We merely ship goods here. We don't sell them. And the neighbours don't know that we craft mermaids either. Which trader told you about us? Why did you come all the way out here to buy one instead of getting one in town? And there was a mermaid right at your feet before you started looking around the house, wasn't there? The man held the knife up again, finding Tochiro suspicious, but he knew he didn't intend to kill him, otherwise he would have already done so. But Tochiro didn't know how to explain why he had come here and have the man believe him. The man seemed to falter at how calm Tochiro appeared. That's right. I don't want one of those cheap ones. I want one that will actually bring me good luck, Tochiro said, unsure if the man would believe him this time. But this time, he twitched. Tochiro couldn't let the moment pass. You have one, right? A real special one? The man's face changed colour as Tochiro continued with the lie. I heard that you have a really special mermaid here, one that brings real good luck. The man lunged at Tochiro with the knife before he could even finish talking. But instead of stabbing him, he ran right past him, into the workshop full of mermaids, grabbed one, and then jumped out the window. For a moment, Tochiro didn't understand what was going on, but then he ran after him into the rain. After running for a while, the man slipped in the mud. Tochiro immediately grabbed the man's arm and subdued him, and when the mermaid fell into a puddle, it seemed to jump around and dive into the water as though it was happy. Tochiro couldn't believe his eyes, but he jumped over the man and started searching the puddle for it. Then he heard the man scream behind him, but when he turned around, the man was gone. There was nothing on the ground where that man just was, and all he saw were wide fields spread out before him. The mermaid and the man had disappeared, and Tochiro stood alone in the pouring rain. With no clues and no way to continue his investigation, he went home. When Kichi's old man heard Tochiro's story, he casually lit a tobacco pipe. I see. Perhaps that was what called me. Hey, was it a real mermaid? Huh? Tochiro asked, approaching him. Either way, I only sensed an ominous lingering scent off that piece of work you have, so perhaps it was real. Tochiro muttered, unhappy with the old man's half-assed response. Yet it seemed Kichi's old man had the answer he was after, and was no longer interested in the story. If you want to hide a tree, you put it in a forest. If you want to hide a mermaid, he muttered as he returned to work. But wouldn't that backfire? Tochiro asked, running after him, continuing their never-ending conversation like always. And so, Tochiro forgot all about the mermaid, and it remained in the storehouse gathering dust until the warrior incident. But that's a story for another time. Next up, a strange-looking man appears at the store with a cart packed full of goods. Unfortunately for him, Kichi's father isn't there to help, so he's regretfully turned away. But what's this man's story, and what might be hiding inside all those old-looking goods? Find out in Antique Man. One day, Kichi was watching the family store. He was staring at the blue sky outside, head resting on his chin, when suddenly a voice made him jump. "Excuse me, boy, but where's the owner?" He hadn't noticed anyone was in the store, but now a fat man suddenly stood before him. Dad has gone to the flea market and won't be back until tonight," Kichi said, and the man seemed to slump before him. "What should I do? What should I do? No, but..." the man muttered. He was wearing a large coat full of holes, even though it was already June, and he had a hat pulled down over most of his face. Judging by his appearance, Kichi guessed he was having money troubles and wanted to sell some junk. And by how he was fidgeting, there were probably collectors on his back too. The man continued muttering, as though consulting with someone. "What should I do? But I don't have time. Can I just leave it to this kid? But if I leave everything to him, then..." Kichi got annoyed by the man's attitude. "Sir, if you're just browsing, then please leave. I can't buy anything off you anyway." At that, the man looked sadly at his bag full of junk, and then silently left the store. That evening, a local police officer came to the store. "Hey, kiddo!" I didn't do anything," Kichi said, freezing on the spot. "Ha! I'm not here for you. Is your father around?" His father was popular today. "He won't be back until tonight, but why are you looking for him?" Kichi asked. "I see. Well, that's a bit of a bother. I thought these might belong to you, but now there's no way to check." The officer scratched his beard. He was holding a cart full of goods. The same goods that customer from earlier in the day had brought to the store. But not just goods. It also had his clothes, his shoes, and even his hat. "You guys are the only ones who deal in these sorts of antique goods around here, right? But this stuff is a little strange to be simply lost and found. It's not just the bag, but the clothes are also packed with goods. Even the hat. Why on earth?" Kichi gulped, fearing something had happened, or perhaps was still happening. He told the officer he'd seen the goods before, took them off his hands, and then opened them one by one in the store. Inside the bag, jam-packed full of stuff, he found a beautiful box made of paulownia wood. "I wonder if there's an umbilical cord inside," he thought. He was curious, but also afraid, so he decided to wait until his father got home to check it. When his father came home that night, Kichi ran from the store through the living room to the front door to greet him. "Dad, come quickly!" When his old man heard that, his slightly tipsy eyes suddenly hardened. "Oh, I see," he said when he entered the store and saw the mountain of goods on the floor. "Kichi, fetch the mail for me." Kichi didn't say a single thing, but his old man seemed to understand what was going on and quickly gave Kichi his orders. His father had been in another prefecture for the last 3 days at a flea market, a type of gathering, so the last 2 days of mail had piled up. When he looked at one of the postcards, he turned to the goods and sighed. "I'm sorry." Several months prior, an old friend invited Kichi's father to his house. The old barn was soon going to be torn down, so he wanted Kichi's old man to appraise the items inside. If anything was valuable, he hoped to use that money as a deposit for a new barn. But nothing inside was of value, and so the old friend had to postpone his plans. The barn was full of junk, and yet Kichi's old man seemed to sense something. He asked his friend to let him take the goods once he tore the barn down, and he readily agreed. "I forgot to say, but we'll be tearing it down in 2 days, the postcard said. His father's old friend feared that everything would be thrown out with the barn, and believing in his father's words, he summoned all his strength to bring the goods here, only to find that Kichi's old man wasn't in. Then, exhausted, he left the goods by the roadside. "What's this?" Kichi's old man said, noticing the box. "I didn't see this at his house." He opened the box and took out a beautiful stone that looked like a jewel. "This is amazing." To Kichi, it looked like payment for his father to take the goods off his friend's hands, when they both knew that nothing was of worth in there. "What an honest man," Kichi's old man said, polishing the stone. Amongst the junk they found some old tools that Kichi had no idea what they might be used for, but they had been repaired, showing that they had been well looked after. Kichi regretted what he did that day. and as he watched his father's back as he carefully went through and polished everything, he wondered if something miraculous might also happen to him someday, if he also took such good care of both people and objects. With that in mind, both Kichi and his old man polished and fixed up the goods late into the night. And finally, our last adventure with Grandpa Kichi. A customer visits the store every day to look at a radio that's currently under repair. But what's this customer's story, and what is it that he sees outside the store that terrifies him so much? Find out in Radio Under Repair. Almost every day, a customer came into the store to look at a radio with an under repair sign on it, as though he was thinking about buying it. Sometimes Kichi met his gaze from the living room, and he would smile kindly at him each time. Seeing his father, the complete opposite of this friendly man, silently write in his ledger instead of dealing with the customer, having judged him as someone who wasn't going to buy anything, honestly shocked Kichi. "Kichi, I have to go out for a minute, so watch the store for me," his old man said, leaving before Kichi could even respond. Without a word, Kichi entered the store. With a big yawn, he walked over, but then suddenly he stopped. He was there. "Oh, hello," the man said to Kichi, who didn't realize he was there. He was a slim, kind-looking man. Kichi greeted him in kind, and then the man went back to looking at the antiques. Kichi just watched the man, having nothing in particular to say to him. But then the man seemed to realize he was looking at him, so he turned around. "This is nice. I like this store. And the goods are all administered beautifully as well." It wasn't like running an antique store was something to be proud of, but hearing that, Kichi felt a little embarrassed and thanked the man. He felt like they'd become somewhat closer already. "What is that, I wonder?" the man said, pointing to something outside. "Huh?" Outside the store was just an empty shopping street, and at this time there weren't even any people walking around. What was it that he saw? "Ah, never mind. It's my first time in a countryside town, so I suppose everything is rare and new to me," he said. Kichi didn't pay much more attention to it, but then the man continued. "Ah, there it is again. Has it always looked like that? Why is it getting closer bit by bit?" Day by day, Kichi grew more and more curious about the man as he said things like that. "Where? Where?" he would ask, but whenever they ran out of the store, the thing was gone, and Kichi never saw it even once. About a month after Kichi started seeing that customer, he appeared again while Kichi was watching the store. But something seemed wrong. He stood in front of Kichi's seat, his eyes focused on the ground. "What's going on?" Kichi wondered, but the atmosphere was too tense to even move. Then, slowly, the man lifted his head. "Hey, can you see that?" he said desperately, his face breaking out in a sweat as he stared at Kichi. Unlike previous times, this time he didn't point outside. Suddenly, Kichi grew afraid. He had no idea what it was that the man could see, and so he shook his head. Then, the man ran from the store, and that was the last Kichi ever saw of him. The mystery was left unsolved. A few days later, Kichi was helping clean the store, and as he was dusting the radio, he suddenly remembered that man. Outside the store looked perfectly normal. There was just a small child playing jump rope. I wonder what on earth he was talking about, Kichi muttered to himself. And then his father replied, still looking down at his ledger. Ah, did they come to get him? His father seemed to know what he was talking about. Get him? What do you mean? He looked at his father in surprise, who then returned the expression. It's the 49th day after his death. Did he look human to you? His father said, moving to stand before the radio. I'm glad. If he'd stuck around, then it was gonna cost way too much to exercise him. Then he ripped the under repair paper from the radio and scrunched it into a ball before throwing it away. That sign wasn't for the customers. It was for him. And the thing that man saw was whatever came to pick him up for the 49th day after his death. But Kichi couldn't help but think about why the man was so afraid of what he saw. While Grandpa Kichi's adventures might be over, let's continue with a few more tales of strange and cursed items. In this next story, the narrator takes his phone to the shop to get it fixed, and in return, they give him a replacement phone to hold him over. But oddly, there's already a message on this cleanly wiped phone when he gets it. Who is this mystery person messaging him, and what do they really want? Find out in Replacement Device. This happened to me last year. At the time, my phone was playing up, so I took it to the shop. They needed to take it off my hands to fix it, but they said they didn't have any replacement devices at the time. I thought about taking it to another shop, but then the youngest staff member there said, "Why don't you use this?" She brought out a phone that was the same make as my own, so that would make things more convenient. But the other staff members got together to discuss it. Is it really okay? This isn't good. Maybe, it'll happen again. I overheard them saying stuff like that. I didn't want to go to all the trouble of visiting another store, however, so I interrupted them. I don't mind if it doesn't work that well. If you can fix my phone, then that will be fine. In the end, they took my phone and gave me the replacement one. If you've ever had to exchange phones, then you know how it goes. The staff first make sure that everything has been reset, right? Of course, they did that there, and then I signed the papers. But when I got home and was playing with the phone, I noticed a number I didn't recognize in the call history. The date was from 6 months prior. The time and date in the phone were set correctly, and I didn't remember making any calls on the replacement device either. Not to mention that I generally only received calls, and I tended to settle matters through text. I was curious, but they did say the phone wasn't working well when I got it, so I decided to ignore it the best I could. The next day, the phone seemed to be working fine, and I got a text from an acquaintance. As we were exchanging texts, I accidentally pressed the wrong button, and the text changed to display from the oldest instead of the newest. I pressed the up key when the newest text was at the top of the list. I received a lot of email magazines and texts for work and such, so the oldest messages were generally only a month old. Unless it was something special I saved, of course. But the oldest message was a deco mail from 6 months prior. It didn't have any emoji, but was just a black background with a single line of orange text on it. "Hey, can you see this?" I was so curious that I had to reply. "When did you send this?" I asked. As expected, as soon as I sent it, I got a message saying that it failed to send. But at the same time, I received another message, meaning both came at the exact same time. The other message said just one word, again being orange text on a black background. "Now." I sent several messages after that, and each time I got an error message alongside an actual reply. I learned that the person sending the replies was a woman in her 20s, and apparently she lived alone. I was curious about her, but I was also getting more and more creeped out, so after that, I stopped messaging her. When I woke up the next day, the light letting me know I had a message was flashing. Well, I tended to receive newsletters while I was asleep, so this was basically a daily occurrence. But this time, it was that woman I messaged the day before. There were dozens of messages, most of them asking something like, "Can you see this? You can see this, right?" Of course, this creeped me out, so I deleted all the messages, including the ones from the day before, and then put the address on the rejection list and went to work. As I was playing with my phone during lunch that day, I remembered that other message from 6 months ago was still on the phone, the one with the black background and orange text. I guess the correct term for it is a HTML mail. But then I realized the text was actually a link. I clicked it and it took me to a map. A familiar Google map. Then, when I saw where it was indicating, a chill ran down my spine. It was my house. An indescribable fear and revulsion filled me. Like, if I clicked it while at home, then I could explain it as a link designed to show my current location. But I wasn't at home, and it was clearly showing my house. Not only that, but this was a message from 6 months ago. As I began to panic, I realized I'd received another message. "Did you see it?" Orange text on a black background. Then I realized something else horrifying. There was no sound notification or flashing light when the message came in. Of course, this happened with all the other messages. But when we were exchanging texts the day before, the replies always came at the same time as the error message, so I never noticed it. More messages came in without a sound. "I'm naked, so I'm cold. It's dark, so I'm scared. Nobody's coming." They kept coming in. Banning the address did nothing. I thought it had to be someone I knew playing a prank on me, but that didn't explain how they got around the address ban or the message from 6 months ago. And then the messages, which at first were replies to my questions, started to become more one-sided, repeating things like, "I'm scared. Can you see this? I'm cold." I was so creeped out that I decided to borrow a phone my friend was no longer using and then returned the replacement. When I was at the shop counter filling out the forms, the staff member told me I had one unread message. It was a message with the current time and date, and it said, "Don't leave me alone." There was also a picture attached, but it was just a black screen. The staff member's face stiffened, and they seemed to know something about it. They quickly reset the phone and then finished the forms. And that was that. But it wasn't the end of the story. It turned out that phone number that was in the call history when I borrowed the phone belonged to an acquaintance. I wrote it down because I was curious, and when I showed it to a friend, she said it looked familiar. She looked it up, and although it wasn't a woman I'd ever exchanged numbers with, it belonged to a woman I knew. And apparently, that woman had gone missing 6 months earlier. I never got any strange messages again after that, and I did my best to forget about what happened. But a few days ago, I found that number on my phone again while I was asleep. I live alone, and there was no evidence that anyone else had touched my phone. Just remembering it frightens me, so that's why I wrote it down here. In this next story, a young woman enjoys collecting wind chimes. Although perhaps it might be better to say she doesn't just enjoy collecting them, but is obsessed with them. And amongst those wind chimes, it seems there's at least one that perhaps shouldn't be there. Find out why in Wind Chimes. It's hot, so let me tell you a story about wind chimes. I had a friend who really loved collecting them. She worked so much that she had to repeat a year of university so she could make money to buy them. She bought so many of them that she'd put her money towards wind chimes before food, and she loved showing off her collection to me. This is a rare one from Turkey. This one's made from Japanese squid. She always seemed to greatly enjoy herself as she explained them to me. I couldn't deny that they were beautifully coloured and the sounds had a cooling effect, but I was honestly kind of fed up when she continued going on about them, even during winter. However, because of her continually unhealthy lifestyle, during the summer holidays of her 3rd year at university, she had a heart attack in the dorms. A friend found her, but by that point, she had already passed away. Before long, her elderly parents arrived from the countryside, and they began collecting all her stuff. I was one of her few friends, so they asked me if I could help. I hadn't visited her room for a long time, but it was still full of wind chimes. When I opened the window to let some air in, the sound of them all ringing made the room feel hot and stuffy. And as they all continued to ring, we managed to pack all her wind chimes and minimal other items into cardboard boxes. But then I heard something still ringing inside the room. Thinking it was a chime we must have missed, I searched the room for the source of the sound. It seemed to be coming from inside the closet. I found it odd that a chime could be ringing inside a closet with no wind, and I was sure we had already packed up everything in there anyway. But I opened the door, and that was indeed where the sound was coming from. In the ceiling, I saw the head of an unknown middle-aged man whose mouth was moving. Every time it moved, it made the sound of a wind chime. Beneath it hung a thin strip of paper with a simple body drawn on it in black ink. I stared at it, dumbfounded, but it continued making noise as its eyes rolled around. And as thanks for helping clean up her room, my friend's parents gave me that wind chime as payment. But that chime continued making noise, even when it wasn't hung up. It was so noisy that I decided to get rid of it. Last month, I was able to find a collector who bought it for a high price, and I put that money towards buying an energy-efficient air conditioner instead. A young boy enjoys exploring the massive storehouse at his grandmother's house during the holidays. And as you might expect, inside he finds something rather odd and mysterious. At first sight, it appears to be a gorgeous box, but what shocking secrets does it hide inside? Find out in Body Parts Box. So, this is a little out of the blue, but I'm afraid of boxes. Big ones, small ones, it doesn't matter. They terrify me. If the lid is open and you can see inside, then it's fine. But if the lid is closed, there's just no way. I tremble in fear. It all started with an experience that I had in junior high. My grandmother's house on my mother's side had a large storehouse. One of those types with the thick earthen walls. And for a child, well, it's like a treasure mountain, right? Whenever we went there with our parents during the summer holidays, my brother, 1 year younger than me, and I would always go exploring there. It was packed with interesting stuff like old armor, broken Japanese swords, and all sorts of agricultural equipment we didn't really understand. One day, my brother went shopping with our parents and grandmother, so I explored the storehouse by myself. Because I no longer had to watch out for my brother, I went further inside than usual as well. Inside, there were all sorts of things that creeped me out, like a wooden board in the shape of a person, and a burlap sack full of weird thorns. Feeling uncomfortable, I took just a quick look around, and then turned to leave. Then, I saw it on an old chest of drawers. It was on top of what appeared to be an old Shinto altar sitting on the drawers. A box of about 15 centimeters square, covered in gorgeous gold lacquer. This box was so gorgeous that it seemed immediately out of place in the dirty old storehouse. And as though it was drawing me in, I picked it up. Looking closer at it, it appeared to open from the middle region, almost like the treasure chests from Dragon Quest. Excited, I slowly opened the lid, and was immediately disappointed. Inside the box was yet another smaller, identical box. Oh, come on, I thought, and then I opened that box. As I expected, inside that was yet another smaller box. It was just like a Matryoshka doll. A box, inside a box, inside a box, inside a box. As I continued opening them, I noticed there was something written on the bottom of the boxes. Nails, teeth, ears, nose, kidneys. All of the boxes had body parts written on them. I was getting more and more afraid, but I couldn't stop now. I kept going. Lungs, pancreas, spleen, hair. I finally reached the last box. It was barely 1 centimeter large. On the front, it said sincerely, "End." Looking at the back, it said, "Skull." Feeling both curious and afraid, I slowly opened this final box. Inside was a small piece of folded paper. Disappointed once more, I opened it. The above-mentioned articles will be collected shortly. 2 months later, my younger brother died. He went missing on the way home from school. If he went missing, then how do I know he died? Well, they found something on the route he took home. His brains. The rest of him was never found. When I heard that, I was more frightened than anyone, even my parents. Brains was the only word not written on those boxes, after all. You shouldn't be so careless with mysterious boxes. Finally this week, a group of art students gather to sketch a weird-looking statue, but when they're done and stop to look at their works, they're shocked by what they see. What exactly was it they were looking at? Find out in Female Statue. This is something that happened to me a few years ago that I still don't really understand. My friend A and I were studying art at a junior college. This happened during our club activities one hot day during July or August. There were 5 of us there. Me, A, B, C, and K senpai. Usually we put something in the middle of the circle, like a bust or a fruit basket or something, and then we'd sit in a chair and sketch it. Then, once we were done, we'd move our chairs around the circle to do it again from a different angle. On this particular day, our model was a crudely made bronze female statue. We didn't have a regular schedule for whoever's turn it was to bring something in, but this time around it was K senpai who brought it. I didn't like it very much though, because this statue had no head, arms or legs. Like, I could understand it if the statue was missing its arms and legs from a little further down. It's not like statues like that are rare, and they're meant to emphasize the curves of the female body. But this particular statue, it had no head or neck, and its arms and legs were missing right at the joints. It was like an incredibly lifelike bronze torso, like something you might see in a clothes shop. It was just really creepy. I'll skip ahead a bit, but when we looked at our finished sketches, oddly, they were all different. I drew 2 wide open eyes. A drew a close-up of female genitalia with an arm covered in coarse hair coming out. K senpai drew 2 bloodshot eyes. C's was a little gross, but she drew something related to male genitalia. And B drew half-open eyes floating in a classroom. Not a single person had actually drawn the female statue. Even now, I still don't know why I drew what I did. I just unconsciously drew what came to mind, and that was the end result. But it's hard to imagine that A and C, who had never drawn such gruesome or crude things, would unconsciously draw what they did. There's just no way. In the end, we had no idea what was going on, and we ran home without even turning the classroom lights off. We threw the sketchbooks and left the statue where it was. The next day, A went to check the classroom but found it had been cleaned. When we asked C, B, and K senpai about it, none of them knew anything about it. And to this day, I still don't know what happened. I have no idea whether someone removed the statue and the sketchbooks, but we never found them again after that. And because we were so scared, we never tried looking for them anyway. Well after the fact, I tried telling myself that maybe there were small eyeballs all over the statue and that we subliminally drew those things. But there were pictures that weren't of eyeballs. C's picture was especially gross. I also tried telling myself that maybe they were all pranking me. But that doesn't explain why I also drew what I drew, does it? A huge thank you and shout out to this week's Kami tier members, Ella C, Emerald and Kenneth Kawamoto. It's thanks to your support, along with everyone else, that I'm able to keep doing this show, so thank you very much. Don't forget to check out Kaihan, Bizarre Crimes That Shook Japan Volume 2, out on Amazon right now. And check out our merchandise store at kowabana-shop.fourthwall.com. And if you'd like to chat about this week's stories, come and join us in the Kowabana Discord. You can find that link in the description or on kowabana.net. You can also check out our Patreon at patreon.com/TaraADevlin for exclusive bonus stories and extras, or our YouTube channel at youtube.com/KowabanaJapan for all sorts of Japanese horror you won't find anywhere else. Thanks guys, stay safe, and I'll see you again next time for even more Kowabana, true Japanese scary stories from around the internet. Want even more scary stories? Head over to kowabana.net for new translations every week. You can also join our Patreon for exclusive stories you won't find anywhere else. Head over to kowabana.net now.